What does this do to the Gators DB room now, and then what can it do in the future?
Yeah, again, my initial thought was, here we go again.
Yeah.
Back in the Cormani rat race, back into the Cormani roller coaster. I think, after talking to Ahmad Black, who obviously coached him his senior year, this isn't a bad kid. This isn't a kid like we're talking about is like getting DUIs. I think he would transfer to Georgia if that were the case. But he's not getting like in trouble off the field. It's just like some immature decisions.
Yeah.
And I think talking to Ahmad, who obviously is close with the Cormani, it's kind of a humbling experience for Cormani. He is a kid who at 17 years old in high school, everybody wanted him.
Right.
You jump in the portal after just 1 year, it's just 1 year later, and that same market is not there. And I think that's a little bit humbling. I think it's a little bit humbling for him to come as a walk-on. So I think you're going to get a hungry Cormani McClain, one that is ready to prove himself. And listen, he's a walk-on now. Like, he'll be on scholarship in December.
Sure.
From Florida's perspective, you're getting a former 5-star, somebody who you really wanted. I mean, this is a guy who was so wanted that Randy Shannon was, as Silk put said it on Monday, was held hostage while Mike Norvell held a birthday cake. And the entire
Kewan Ratliff too.
The entire staff sung out. Like, this is a kid that was so wanted that grown men were acting crazy.
Right.
Super talented football player. I think if you can put some weight on him, he's 6'2", 6'4" wingspan, weighs 160 pounds. I think if you put some weight on him, he's a guy that's a future NFL draft pick. And you're getting that without having to pay a scholarship for 6 months. It's eventually going to be on Cormani. I think Florida has talked about a ton about the culture that they've built, the sense of accountability, not just to the program, to the school, to the coaches, the accountability to each other inside the locker room that they've cultivated over 3 years. And if one player can ruin that, then maybe it's not the same kind of culture that you thought it was. So to me, one player is not going to ruin your culture, and Florida feels like the structure that they have in place, the accountability that they have in place, can help make Cormani better. Zach Albaverdi wrote a story that he thinks Florida can help Cormani more than Cormani can help Florida. So I think that's kind of where Florida is. I don't think he's a starter from day one. I think Jason Marshall, Devin Moore are starters, and then
Jakeem Jackson.
You got to get him where you fit in. There's Jakeem Jackson, Deshaun Johnson, Aaron Gates, Sharif Denson, Jameer Grimsley. Like, all of these guys have a head start on Cormani as well, from just being here for spring practice. The sophomores being here for some of them 2 springs, and obviously in the fall as well. So Cormani's going to have to earn it, and I think he signed up for that.
Yeah, no, you have a lot of riches. Let's just run through. You mentioned Jason Marshall there. Let's look at just first and second year players the Gators will have: Cormani McClain, Jakeem Jackson, Teddy Foster, Aaron Gates, Bryce Thornton, Josiah Davis, Jameer Grimsley, Deshaun Johnson. It's a solid group. Gregory Smith, right? I mean, now you're starting to tack on some talent here that not only is just 1 or 2 big names, but now you have, I think, 4 players that were top 30 DBs in the class of 2023. And that room's kind of shifted a little bit, right? I mean, I think that one of the things that we've talked about at Florida the last couple of years has just been, if one guy goes down, who's next, right? And there's still a lot of development, but between Cormani McClain, Jakeem Jackson, Deshaun Johnson, Devin Moore, Jameer Grimsley, you have all of those guys were ranked in the top 20 of their class from DBs. Aaron Gates is a guy that the Gators are really high on. That doesn't even account for the fact that you have Bridges, Douglas, some other older players on the team now as well. Devin Moore, obviously, is your other starter in there. Now all of a sudden, now you have some real competition in that room to be able to get on the field. It's not just next man up, it's next man who earned it is up.
Yeah, I pulled up our old trusty CFBstats.com, which is essentially my landing page during football season. Pull up the national rankings, slide down to interceptions. There are 132 Division I football teams in the United States of America. Daniel, where
Yeah.
did Florida wind up on the interceptions ranking?
I think it's, I'm going to guess 127.
132. Florida and
132.
Temple.
Wow.
Florida
Wow.
and Temple, worst in the country at getting their hands on the ball. Cormani had 10 interceptions as a junior in high school, a former receiver. I think Jameer Grimsley. What I think Florida did this offseason is you had a bunch of athleticism and a bunch of talent. They added a veteran experience, and I think thousands of snaps and nearly 100 starts between DJ Douglas, Traquise Bridges, and Asa Turner.
Yeah.
So I think you have a really unique secondary with young guys. And also some of those young guys, like Jordan Castell, nobody played more snaps than Jordan Castell last year on defense. Nobody.
Nuts.
So a sophomore on paper, you still think, hey, young, but a ton of experience.
It's almost like a junior in experience.
Bryce Thornton, who I think is going to be a situational role player. He started the last 2 games at safety as a freshman. So I really like Florida's secondary. Now, listen, now you have to get your hands on the ball. There was a ton of explosive plays given up. That's not all on the secondary. You could have Champ Bailey and Darrell Revis in their prime on either side. It's going to be hard for them to cover a guy for 8-9 seconds. You have to have a pass rush. Everything is kind of tied in together, but I think Florida's secondary, I think when I wrote a story and I thought the secondary was the best position group on defense, ahead of the defensive line, even just because of what they've been able to add. And Cormani's another addition to that room.
Yeah, no, definitely need probably to add some weight. You're going to have some maturation time, some gestation time, getting used to the university and getting an opportunity, and maybe with the expectation being a little bit lower, right? He was one of the highest ranked recruits. I think he was the highest ranked recruit Colorado had ever gotten. And the expectation is for him to start year 1. Obviously he didn't. He had some struggles, and we can leave those struggles in Colorado, right? Until they happen here, we can hope that they're an isolated circumstance. Ends up playing 4 games, doesn't have a great 4-year stretch or a 4-game stretch there. Maybe for him, like you said, Nick, this is just that eye-opening experience for him to be able to learn, grow, and maybe some of that expectation is now off of him, right? I know DBs like the limelight and everything else, but transitioning from high school to college, no matter how good you are, still takes some time. And now where he's going to be on the depth chart, there's going to get some time for him to be able to add some weight, add some size, work on some of that skill.